I'm in my Farquaad arc. I'm far, far away maxing. This shrink ain't nothing to me, man. Women whose names start with YV are always baddie. They built different than Germanoid chudettes. Just kidding. I think the monolithic Freudian atheists that created terms like Asperger's to denote abnormalities to totalizing state control jumped the shark when they created ADHD and ADD. Everyone knows, including the person who created the term, that it's caused by petroleum dyes they started putting in the food when the term was invented. And you know, the Nazi scientists we brought in under Operation Paperclip chuckle from hell every time people blame genetics for things like that. It's not complicated. They told you you didn't have free will because they subverted your will to theirs, their institutions, and their propaganda. It's as simple as that. And if you allow yourself to do that, well, you know, you're going to suffer, but everybody else around you is going to suffer too. So it isn't just like, oh, well, you really should get it together. Just saying. You know, saturated fats tend to be very satiating. And if you cut those back, you tend to reach for the carbs more often. Thus, fat vegans. But if you can get both of those under control, whoa, buddy, you are golden. You're doing great. You gotta be careful with the Kraken. There's always a chance that you're dealing with a phallic tentacle. Never forget. Oh. Whether you say F Joe Biden or F Israel, you're allowed to say these things. You have a legal right. Zionists are simultaneously saying they're protecting us from a global caliphate, while saying they just want to be left alone. Whereas the well-studied know that the Rothschild Bank, which financed the creation of Israel, is the global caliphate. It is the global caliphate. And they're just projecting, which is the most basic psychological principle. It's psychology 101. It's the most often used fallacy, is the projection, because people see inside of themselves, you know, what they are, and they project it on other people because it's just what they are. And if they don't allow themselves to change, they'll have a very, very bad blank way of interpreting other people, and instead they will just vomit out their own insides onto other people and say this, that, and the third. You know? That's why horseshoe theory is so real. That's why left, right on the same bird. That's why a lot of things. The fever is certainly breaking, though. I have a feeling. I can see it. You got creeps, like Randy Fine from my area, literally my backyard, that can win in this destroyed condition of Florida. But do more to expose the insanity of Zionism by publicly jacking off over pictures of dead Palestinian children, sinking Ron DeSantis, his close friend, deeper into the muck. I have the deepest feeling that their inevitable plan is guns on drones and MIT robodogs forcing Americans to consent or die. But the sheer cruelty on the way has opened up a huge discussion. And Trump is here to help us self-immolate in our current structure before we obliterate the entire planet on behalf of Epstein associates. Anybody who thinks it's just Jews is fooling themselves. The Zionists put the Jews in front of them as a meat shield. I've heard this from many, 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 many Jews. Basically every single Jew that I've ever been friends with has confirmed this suspicion that I already had. As somebody who had experience with Christian Zionism from a young age, it is a malignant, histrionic, manipulative, destructive force of aberrant psychology, and it is using whatever tactic, whether it's anti-war, pro-civil rights, anti-civil rights. As I said, it will use any tactic that it can in its theosophical toolbox to try and manipulate people. And people just need to get educated, essentially. You know, they need to stop letting university intellectuals educate them on stuff, and they need to be willing to do their own research. And that's kind of the point of this show, is that I don't make wonderful points all the time. Sometimes I make a good point, sometimes I make a great point. But what I want to do is get people thinking. And get people thinking in a way that's quicker and more three-dimensional, four-dimensional, 3D, 4D, 3D, than the very flat, basic way of thinking. That chronic thinking in that way will literally lead you into flat earth conspiracies and stuff like that. Let's not even call it a conspiracy, because who the heck is conspiring, right? If anything, there's a conspiracy to get people into flat earth groups so that they can milk them and abuse their willpower, you know, subvert their will to the institution of flat earth. And, oh, NASA's so evil, and what is the long-term consequence of that is privatization of the space industry, and then putting weapons in space, and then essentially dooming large portions of the planet. Now, thankfully, Japan is working on lasers that they'll be able to fire up into the sky. They'll be able, God, I love Japan. They'll be able to help us and save us, good people, decent people, prevent the sort of horrors from happening that happened to Hiroshima, Nagasaki, and the 56 other places that we firebombed in Japan. They'll try to prevent that from happening because, you know, good old Japan. Good old Japan. You know, don't get fooled by the anime. They really do have good hearts. They got good in their hearts. And if it wasn't for the bombing of Nagasaki, large portions of Japan could have been willing Catholics at this point. But, yeah, there's a reason why Truman, a psychopath little gremlin monster, chose that particular place to bomb. It is what it is, you know. That's where Our Lady of Akita, similar to Over the Mountain, came from. The woman, I believe, who prophesized that recently passed away, so rest in peace. And thank God that Trump is doing this, because I can tell the Democrats manipulate people better, and they push all the biggest issues around this subject down the line. But the Republicans like to eat too good to maintain the vehicle. In an accelerationist way, they're actually the better for the long term, even though it's pain in the short term. This is fine. You know, you just got to be zen about it. There's always going to be earthquakes. There's always going to be storms. You have to be zen. That simple. One thing I'll say is that the LGBT, by nature of annoyance, primed people to say screw Zionists. You're not going to thought police us as a delicate minority while you commit violence against the vulnerable. It's not happening. It's not happening. And a lot of this, you know, deportation of visas and green card holders is testing the waters to see how far they can push it. They're not pushing it any farther based on what I've seen. All the way from, like, the center left, center right, all the way over to the left, and all the way back to the far right. You know, people are not having it. People are not having it. Suffer, Zionists. Suffer. Waspism just means believing in a homeland for wasps in your kitchen. Don't be such an anti-waspite. Well, hey, if you were paper wasps just trying to get along, I'd respect you. But you ain't. Venomous yellow jackets right over there. Here's a timeline for you. When Null first started directing people attack me in December 2022, I was still completely loyal. I thought he was testing me. I was packing to go to Wyoming and be his registered agent and hang out with King Cobra JFS. Then he went on this podcast and not only misinterpreted legal issues I had in the past, which are very easy to parse if you're not lying, but carried completely manufactured lies that never had a shred of evidence or anything to back them up, Photoshop or otherwise. Just nothing. Just complete and utter, one-to-one straight out the chat, straight out the rumor mill, passed it on to his podcast. Then I got pissed. But I still didn't hate him. The hatred came later, when you started celebrating the slaughter of Arab women and children. Anything you say about Mohammedan children or transsexuals and women is moot after you celebrate the slaughter of women and children. You can say the words human shield all you want. The logic does not check out. That's it. I've seen a ton of hostages get released and blame Netanyahu for the situation, which is accurate. He doesn't give a shit. He would rather there be as many hostages as possible. He would rather have as many bloody shirts as possible. He would rather continue to food blockade the areas with hostages, even if it does have the collateral. He would rather Hamas continuously be in charge, as he's admitted to in the past, in 2008, because he knows that that will prevent Palestine from ever achieving a reasonable government and a reasonable state. If you didn't know, Hamas is the governing body of Palestine, and they were only that way because of interfered with elections. Just like the PLO in the West Bank is a pseudo-terrorist associated with Operation Gladio, a CIA operation. We and the Israeli government has their hands deep, deep, deep into the democratic processes of these areas, which just goes to show that democracy is a joke. It really does. As I said, like, the larger creature in the democratic world will continuously interfere with other smaller democracies, festering authoritarian coups, which eventually will come back into the larger democracy to undermine its democratic process, all in a planned and coordinated scheme. That is exactly how it works. That's exactly how they get people thinking that they're getting what they want. All the while, there is a genuine conspiracy. The strings are being held by warmongers and international bankers and the individuals who will take the check and take the fancy house and take the false reputation, the fame and fortune in order to undermine their kin in this modern encomienda system. They're right, man. They're right. Apparently, Millie Bobby Brown, the child actress Drake, who is also Jewish, by the way, diddled as a teenager, as a young teenager. They not like us. They not like us. They not like us. Is really a sweet person who runs a dog rescue. God sneak Kendrick Lamar. You give it to him. I think he's what the culture feeling, if you confused about that. Musk ain't even special, by the way. Madmen since the dawn of history have attempted to find the secrets of immortality. It's not available. That's why religion is a requirement for living a sane life. Speaking of which, there's nothing that says quick divorce more than a woman who marries for vacation opportunities. I feel so bad for secular and neo-Christian couples. Even if they stay together, most degrade into disgusting swingers. It's a teeny tiny winnowing minority of secular and neo-religious couples that actually end up happy without, a tremendous amount of, and even then, you see the people with millions and millions of dollars to their name who are still swinging. And it's gross. It's genuinely disgusting. Couldn't be me. Every single person, every single girl I've ever been with, I've never, ever considered cheating on. I've never even looked, because it's just like, why? You made your choice. And it always has felt right. So if it feels right, why would you try to make it wrong? Like, I already learned firsthand what happens when you decide to throw away a good thing willingly for no reason. You live with that for the rest of your life. It's a deep scar in your soul. It's a deep scar in your heart. You always got to think of what could have been. And, and that's not to say cheating. I cheated to do that. I just straight up, gave it up. I guess because I'm lazy and weak. But I've never been weak enough to cheat. If you want to normalize queerness, which is oxymoronic, normalize queerness, two completely separate words stuck together, so it's an oxymoron. But not health and environmental protection? You are such an idiot. And don't be surprised when people think that you're the enemy. Don't be surprised. Don't be surprised. That ain't me. I ain't doing that. That's logic. That's morality. That's the basic law of the universe, like the laws of thermodynamics and nuclear force. They will not be abated. You will not gaslight everybody into thinking that, like, everything getting worse, but queer people having more rights is gonna somehow, you know... No, that's not gonna be a popular thing. Never. Ever. Speaking of, if you're okay with violence against women and children for any reason, you are the enemy. Full stop. Full stop. Just, you know, nobody has the interest of Israel in a more contemptible situation than the Zionists, than the violent, Likud-style, settler-promoting monsters that are preventing their borders of Israel from forming properly and waging war and causing grief and strife and encouraging vengeance with their neighbors. That's why Christ said, love thy neighbor as you love thyself. It's the second biggest thing that he said to do. Love God, love thy neighbor before thyself. Respect the laws of the universe. Don't shit where you eat. But a lot of people, they be doing just that. And what do you know? People are shooting each other left and right. If we grow up out of that and we get better, you will see America truly become great again. If we do not, it does not matter how much money the government has. It will be dust in your mouth. It's dust in the rich people's mouth. They're miserable. So, yeah. I have tons of normal baseline thoughts throughout the day. If I'm passionate enough about them, I'll talk about them, but mostly I jot down outlier thoughts and see if I can flesh them out. I carry around a little booklet, which I got wet last night, forgetting where I put it while I was watering plants. Now, at least the little light is okay still. It's good, but as you can see, it's kind of swollen up here. Ah, well. I wish I could find this guy that read the electric Kool-Aid acid test inside a fully decked out psychedelic hippie van again. He ended up degenerating into a coffee store communist, and I wanted to make a Kiwi Farms thread about him, but I just, for like a year, constantly distracted by BS that wasn't helping the website, and didn't help the website at all in the long term. And I eventually passed it over to like a moderator, and no, like, here, try to do something with this, and I didn't do jack with it. Oh, well. You know, I would naturally feel a lot better if I saw Null say, well, I was fooled into thinking that Hamas had the whole situation. But it's like, you gotta be stupid. You gotta be stupid. He was doing it because people who agree with those opinions butter his bread. And I got way more respect for you if you don't sell out in that way, if you're just patient, if you don't try to get the infinite money Zionist glitch. You gotta work slowly, surely, by the sweat of your brow, and by the merits of your soul, you shall succeed. But what does it benefit a man to gain the world and lose his soul? Not nothing. That's null and void. That's moot. I love you, horseshoe theory. Pickle Rick. So bad that it wraps back around to being the funniest shit I ever seen. And with that, I'll let you go. Take care. Cheers.